everyone. Good evening. This is Much to Do About Nothing. I am your host, Chase Strauss, and with me is not Liam Carroll and Sean Collins, so we will not have any chairs flying through the glass of Scot Radio, nearly hitting our tech. With me is Ben Schneider, the host of the Photo Finish on Scot Radio. Ben, welcome.
What's up, guys?
So, we got a lot today in news, but it's not going to be as organized because I'm going to be completely honest. No one informed me that we actually still had radio today because it is quad break for a lot of Gordon's students. And yeah, so I'm just going to kind of wing it and hope for the best. So,
see, I gave you 24 hours notice that I wanted you on my show yesterday. You gave me about 24 minutes notice. So
yeah, well,
we'll
you
see
know
how
what?
this goes.
Either way, it's going to be a good day on Much to Do About Nothing. So, big news right now coming with the U.S. politics. Shocker. But Saudi Arabia transfers $100 million to the U.S. amid crisis over, I can't even pronounce his name, Khashoggi. I'm gonna butcher that, but obviously, you know, this is one of those cases where, you know, Middle Eastern countries are very difficult to work with, you know, because, you know, obviously they have a much different moral code as us. And, you know, it's kind of ironic because the $100 million came from Saudi Arabia came the same day Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrived in Saudi Arabia to discuss, you know, the disappearance of journalists, Jamal Khashoggi, or we're just going to call him Jamal. And, you know, right now it's bringing into question, the human rights of, you know, freedom of speech and, you know, freedom of the press. The big thing with me right now is that it's a human rights issue because it's freedom of press and freedom of speech. However, you know, some of the Middle Eastern countries aren't in advance in terms of human rights as America is. So, I mean, Trump, obviously, you know, President Trump is very, very much involved in keeping Americans safe, especially overseas. And he's, you know, initially promised severe punishment for Saudi Arabia, you know, for, you know, if, you know, Saudi Arabia did, in fact, kill Jamal. And however, right now he's floating away to a different theory that, you know, it might have been like rogue agents or, you know, militia groups or, you know, some terrorist group. I mean, right now, amidst all of this, you know, since, you know, Kavanaugh has been, you know, confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, and, you know, right now, Trump's reelection in 2020 is looking pretty grim, in my opinion. You know, like there's so many things that have been controversial, and I mean, that's not even getting into his Twitter account. And I hate to admit this, you know, as, you know, I do try as much as I can, and I've said this across multiple platforms of all radio, because I do work Christian radio outside of Gordon. Give what to Caesar is to give Caesar, and give what to God is to God. You know what? Trump is our president. We have to respect him. You know, we don't exactly have to like him. We don't have to like his policies. But the people put him in there, and obviously God had a plan when he put him in there. However, this is, you know, America where, you know, we don't just have someone eternally ruling over us, you know, like, you know, Egypt, where, you know, we're just going to keep worshiping the same God and have, you know, a pharaoh represent God or whatever. His time's got to come up. And do you think, you know, amidst all the allegations, do you think Trump is going to be able to support another re-election just amidst all the chaos?
I actually would not be surprised if he's reelected. And there's two main reasons for that. The first reason is the last president who wasn't reelected was the senior Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, in 1992. And you could argue that Ross Perot, who was an independent candidate, got 19% of the vote. You could argue maybe he played spoiler. I don't like making the spoiler argument, but regardless.
It's a valid argument.
It's an argument a lot of people make. I forget what percentage Clinton actually got. I know it was in the low 40s, I think. And the second reason is, who are the Dems going to nominate?
That's a good
Who
question.
do you have?
I mean, you could potentially go with Elizabeth Warren, but however, which we're going to get into later, has a bit of a scandal going on right now in terms of her, you know, ethnicity and, you know, whether or not she was genuine in making the claim that she is in fact Native American, but that's besides the point. I think potentially Bernie could make another run. I mean, the only problem is he's old. I mean,
Bernie's in his mid-70s, Biden's in his mid-70s.
I mean, right now, actually, one of my friends proposed a very interesting theory that In fact, Biden could run for president, and then Obama could run vice president. That because constitutionally, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely cheating the system. But technically, in the Constitution, it does align. But what do you think?
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
But
think Obama's enjoying retirement in a lot of ways.
well, we know his daughter's enjoying college. I can tell you that much. Yeah, no, she's being a college kid, so you know what? Fair on her. You know what? Good for her. You know.
The only name I can kind of think of is Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, who actually came in third place in the Democratic primaries in 2016, but
I
he
wouldn't
didn't
mind,
gain a lot of traction.
I
So
wouldn't mind seeing O'Malley because, in my opinion, he should have been the one elected in the Democratic Party because Hillary Clinton is a radical, far left, and that's not to say it's a bad thing, but with a House of with the Senate and the House controlled by the Republicans, she'd get nothing done. However, going back to the Saudi Arabia incident, right now Saudi Arabia is, they're claiming that they're going to have, an investigation, and, the monarch said, quote, in all probability, the Saudis want Trump to know that his cooperation in covering from Khashoggi affair is important to the Saudi monarch. My apologies. I was Josh Landis, and much of its financial promises to the U.S. will be contingent on his cooperation. So, and the Saudi embassy did not reply for comment to the Washington Post. So, this could play out very interesting, and right now we gotta wait for a little bit more information. Obviously, you know me. If you listen to the show, you know I'm all about information. Right now, we're only scraping the surface of this story. I would obviously, my heart, goes out to the family of Jamal Khashoggi and his family. Journalism is one of those things where you can either be a real scumbag or you can be a real hero, trying to report the stories of the people who genuinely need their stories heard, or you could be like the Huffington Post and just trash everyone. Or maybe the The Onion, where basically it's a meme at this point.
Well, at least the Onion's satire.
True.
The Huffington Post.
It's almost like the
The
Babylonian.
Huffington Post actually tries.
True. But I think I'm gonna be real. The only place I get my news source is the Babylonian Bee. The
Yes.
Babylonian Bee
Yes.
is the most reliable news source I have ever had in my lifetime, and if you can't tell by my voice, that is sarcasm. The Babylonian Bee is one of the most hilarious news source I've ever had on my life. It's just they made a story of where a worship leader was hired and they didn't know who it looked like. Instead, it was a homeless man who played Pink Floyd in the church, and they genuinely thought this was the worship leader. And then when the actual worship leader came up in khakis and I believe it was I don't think it was a denim jacket. I think it was like, oh my gosh, I think it might have been a flannel. They're like, yeah, no, the worship leader's already here. What are you talking about? And then they realized they put two and two together. Wait. And they just realized they let some homeless man come in and just leads worship. And it's like, I think after the second song of hearing Pink Floyd, you'd realize, I don't think this man is a worship leader. But,
My favorite was guilt-ridden Tim Tebow apologizes after stealing second base.
Oh, no. Tim, why? Why would you do this, Tim? Why would you do this? Oh, my goodness. This, that hurts. That genuinely hurts. However, I think the real news right now is the fact that I have taken a very big loss. This loss was a couple days coming, and I owe it to the person who defeated me. Liam, you lucky son of a gun. You beat me in fantasy because Mason Crosby decided to get 17 points in fantasy. I will never forgive you for this, but well done. And I have to say this because most likely he's going to bring it up at some point, and I'm just going to get the story straight the first time. So, moving on, big news in the auto racing world, which is right up Ben Schneider's alley. Formula One, or actually, I don't know which.
Over in Europe.
Over in
Single
Europe.
seaters over in Europe.
Single seaters in
The
Europe.
Formula One ladder.
Around there are creating a W Series race where it is an all women's race, and the whole series is women. Ben, and tell me about this.
Well, it's received very mixed reactions from people in the industry. Of course, we touched on this a little bit yesterday. And I've got to admit, personally, I'm not that big of a fan. I think women, over time, have proven that one of the beautiful things about motor racing is this is perhaps the only sport, one of the few sports, where women can truly compete on an equal playing field in the same event as men. And say what you will about Danica Patrick and her underwhelming career in NASCAR, she won an IndyCar race. She led laps at the Indy 500. She led laps of the Daytona 500. She made nearly 200 NASCAR Cup Series starts. Hailie Deegan, just 2 weeks ago at Meridian Speedway, went out and won a K&N Pro Series West race, the first woman to win at the K&N level. Meanwhile, let's take a look at basketball, for example. What do you think would happen if you put Elena Delle Donne, Brittany Griner, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, any of these women who are phenomenal basketball players, don't get me wrong, the best female basketball players on the planet. What happens if you put them on the Warriors? They're probably third-string bench warmers at best, and maybe that's even a little too generous. And that's not knocking on their skills at all.
I think there's a couple who could actually, Candace Parker in her prime, I genuinely think she could have been, probably second or third off the bench. Because,
yeah. Well, sure.
There are some
maybe, but they definitely wouldn't be all-stars that they are in the WNBA.
And,
that's not knocking their skills. It's just women are built differently than men, and that sport is a lot more physical.
This actually brings up a good argument that was brought up because I had to do a research paper on Title IX, and, if we were to give full-blown equality in sports, and this is a much along the lines of, a purely capitalistic, economy, it's not what we have now, but that is, in its definition, is its truest form. Teams would literally just be, all right, everyone tries out at the same time, everyone gets the same locker room, everyone has the same privilege. We don't care if you're a boy, girl, or anything. Best people play. Sadly, if we were to do that at Gordon College right now, take the women's soccer team and the men's soccer team, the ratio would not be, it would be predominantly men. Are there a couple girls who could definitely compete at that level? Absolutely. However, it's still you gotta let the women play. And honestly, that divide is, it gives more opportunity. So, I think the UFC handled the whole gender problem the best because what they do is that they don't actually say, oh yeah, the women's heavyweight or the women's. They're just like, yeah, no, the flyweight or the flyweight champion, or the I forget what the weight classes are for the women's, but they don't actually say that separated by women. It's just a different weight class, and it's this. I feel like that's the best thing because it empowers them. It's like, look, you're a fighter. You're a fighter. Obviously, we're going to keep you separated because, I don't condone, men and women beating the tar out of each other in a UFC octagon. As much fun as it would see to see Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, I don't think Ronda Rousey would be able to hang with Conor McGregor. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think that would be very ethical either.
I don't think it would be. However, they didn't go, oh, yeah, it's specifically women, so it's not as much. No, they made a different weight class because they're like, look, it's the same achievement. You're still a hell of a fighter. But, for obvious reasons, we can't put you in the same division as men. Auto racing, I feel like, is a similar concept where it's like, if you're a hell of a driver, you're a hell of a driver. You should just be known for that. And, in a way, I do think this would work because I feel like it'd be a great feeder program for potential Formula One racing. Obviously, the biggest problem right now is finances. But then again, that's a big problem in auto racing altogether.
That was the other thing. So Will Buxton is a Formula One journalist. He was with NBC Sports and Speed Channel in the States, and now is just working for Formula One as a whole since there's no U.S.-based commentary team. ESPN's just simulcasting the feed from Sky Sports in the U.K. But when this was first announced in its development, he was very against it. But since the news has broken this week, he's kind of come around and said, well, when was the last time we had a woman in Formula One? It's been a long time. And we haven't had any that are Lewis Hamiltons or Sebastian Vettel, so clearly something in the system needs to change. Maybe this is what we have to do, even though it's not ideal. So that was an idea from his point of view. But Pippa Mann, who is a female racing driver, won an Indy Lights race, which is basically the Xfinity Series or Formula 2 for IndyCar. It's that level, the level right below the main series. When this was announced, she tweeted out, quote, "What a sad day for motorsport. Those with funding to help female racers are choosing to segregate them as opposed to supporting them. I'm deeply disappointed to see such a historic step backwards take place in my lifetime."
I mean, that's a very, it's in the words of her mouth. Like, it's not, a conservative, it's not a liberal, it's not an independent. It's one of the few people who actually have, knowledge and say of the sport, who has been in the industry for a while. It's a trusted voice. If you talk to Danica Patrick about this, I'm pretty sure she would say the same thing. Well, why do they have to be separated? If anything, I think, you know what, just let the best racers compete.
Well, that was one of the big controversies when Danica made it to the top level, was that, if anything, women tend to be lighter than men. Does she actually have an advantage? Because a lighter car,
if anything,
that means, faster?
Guess what? That means, Kevin Weiss has to lay off the chili dogs and lose a couple pounds, okay? Like, I think the best example is that Danica, with the 7 car for GoDaddy or something like that? I think that's the car she had. She did not, win a race. She did not get top 3. She got like 4 or 5 top 10s, something like that.
Yeah, so Danica was the 7 in IndyCar and in what was then the Nationwide Series, and then she was the 10 for Stewart-Haas Racing.
Yeah,
at
so
Cup. But, 7 top 10s in her career, 0 top 5s, best finish of 6th at Atlanta in 2014.
I actually watched that race. I was pretty impressed, but you get the point. And then someone takes that same car, oh my gosh.
Almirola.
Almirola.
Did you almost say Alonso?
I almost say Alonso. But takes that car, and in one season, top 10 finishes, 1 win. And honestly, right there, the argument's over. He already proved that in one season, it's the driver, it's not the car. And if anything, I think right now, instead of, making a whole separate series for women, why not use that money and invest it in, programs that gets women involved with auto racing and auto, mechanics and stuff like that? Because, I am, like you see a lot of the problems right now with, the wage gap and things like that. The way that statistic, to the best of my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, feel free to, talk to one, Liam, Sean, or myself. The way that statistic was, conceived was that they took the average of male and female salaries and just divided them. Took the percentage. But the problem with that is you have males who, are very heavily involved with, aerospace. A lot of medicine practices are mostly male. And those are like the top 5 professions in the country, like the highest paying jobs. And then you take the bottom 5 and they're all predominated by women because it's teachers, social workers. You have ministers who are, mostly male, other jobs like that. I don't think the problem is necessarily that, evil corporations are trying to, take women down and, like, oh, you're a woman, you can't have this job. I don't think that's the case. I think it's that, they're not going for the jobs that are paying as well. And there are some are, and they're doing phenomenal. Like, I forget, who's that girl in Shark Tank? There's a couple. Dude, I'm sorry. They know more about business than I will ever. They could have a company for like 2 years and make triple what anyone in this room could make. But see, here's the thing. They have to work hard. They have to really, strive and, succeed and learn more about their craft. So I don't think the problem is necessarily that, we have underrepresentation. I feel like, you're not introducing, women into this sport early enough. Because, you think about it, what was that one moment that when you were a kid that really, like, showed you, oh, I want to be this? Like, for me, the first time I saw, I believe it was Marty St. Louis for the Tampa Bay Lightning playing against the St. Louis Blues. I saw him skate, and I'm like, I want to be that when I grow up. And ever since then, I've been pursuing hockey, and, now I'm playing at the collegiate level. Definitely not where I could be. If I decided to play juniors, I'd probably be drafted by now. But, who am I kidding? I would never be drafted. But, but everyone has that moment where it's like, man, I want to be that when I grow up. You know, I feel like, you gotta expose it to women and, like, or younger girls where they can have, I want to be a race car driver. I want to, pursue, auto mechanics. Expose them to, like, there's my high school, we had a program where, it was women in science, where they would take them to like Dartmouth and show them like the physics department, the biochem department, and they're like, yeah, this is what you could do. And depending on their SAT scores, and they would specifically train them for scores and stuff, they could potentially get into these programs. It's one of those things where it's like they were equipped to succeed, and they were early on. I mean, it was freshman year, and they mentored them all the way up till senior year. And I mean, I have a friend right now who's going to Cornell for biochem, and she's playing D1 basketball. Like, yeah, I mean, mad respect. I mean, if they make the finals or they make the tournament, I'm gonna have to probably fly out for a game. But still, like, she was exposed to it, at a relatively young age. She saw what science could do, and she's like, you know what, I want to be involved in that. I don't think the problem is necessarily that there's this evil, person on the sky, saying you can't do that. I think it's more along the lines of they don't know they can do it. So, Ben, you have a clip for us.
Yeah. Well, to be a race car driver, you also need a lot of sponsorship and money, and that's the point that we were talking about. Yeah. So this is motorsports YouTuber David Land. I apologize if you were listening yesterday. You already heard this.
But for the people on SoundCloud, you did not.
Yes, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but
we're just gonna blame Ben for it.
Well, what did I have anything to do with it?
You're the one who brought the clip.
Well,
boom, your fault.
I don't work in the tech studio.
All right. Anyway, play the clip.
Yeah. So this is David Land. Beyond just the politics of this series, where's the money coming from?
This is almost motorsport socialism. You've got a free-to-enter series for any woman who's qualified. On the surface, that looks fantastic. You're thinking, wow, okay, that works. That's cool. That's a great solution to the problem that there's not enough female drivers to really be competitive or be able to rise through the ranks. That's ultimately seems to be their mission statement here, the W Series mission statement. But when you look further down onto the surface, or below the surface level is all sunshine and rainbows. You look just a little bit below it, and you start to see the cracks. The cracks are the same cracks that are affecting every other motorsport in the world. And it has the color of green. Money. Where is the money coming from for this series? No major sponsorships announced. No major brand partnerships announced. No benefactors announced. And at the same time, we've got a commitment to buy 18 to 20 at least. Probably you're going to be buying about 40 of them for a primary and a backup car for each driver, theoretically. 40 Tatis F3 cars.
And where's the money coming for that? Yes.
And I mean, this is not to say, like, honestly, I would love to see this happen. This is something that would do great. However, money talks. Sponsorships talk.
And we live in a world right now in motor racing where pay drivers are more common than not.
Yeah.
And a pay driver, for those of you who don't know, is a driver who basically brings sponsorship to his or her team in return for getting the ride that they have. And the biggest example in NASCAR probably is Paul Menard. Paul Menard is the son of one of the richest men on the planet, John Menard. John Menard is the founder, owner, etc. of Menard's Home Improvement Stores, which is the third largest home improvement chain in the country behind the Home Depot and Lowe's. And Menards has basically single-handedly funded the ARCA Racing Series since 2010. So as long as John Menard, who's been involved with auto racing for years, is willing to bankroll Paul's career, Paul's only won one race in about 400 races. So he's a subpar driver. I won't call him a bad driver because anybody who makes it to Cup is a good driver. But he's a subpar driver.
But you still got to keep him in there. Though.
Yes, and as long as John Menard's willing to do that, there is going to be at least one team who is a little bit hungry for sponsorship who's willing to sign him solely because he brings
money,
guaranteed funding for the whole season.
I think what probably right now the biggest thing is that you got to get the fans involved, because once you get the fans involved, that's when things happen. Imagine what would happen if NASCAR did a street series, like where they trick out the streets of New York and they just have a race in New York City. Think about that.
Formula E's already done it.
I mean,
They've been in Brooklyn for 2 years now.
you do that, you're going to instill, a love of the sport in kids, because they're going to see these cars and be like, wow, look at that. So, I think that's where NASCAR needs to go. I think they need to try and do a street series, but, then again, you could do it just about anywhere. You could do it in, I think Concord, New Hampshire would be a great place to do it, where you get, get it down in Main Street, shut down the city, have them drive through there. You could do it in Boston. Boston would be a really risky thing to do it, but I think it could pay off.
Well, Chase, I actually want to ask you, bouncing off that. IndyCar had a street race planned in Boston in 2016, and that kind of just completely fell through the cracks. So you're here in the area. Do you know exactly what happened to that?
I think it came down to funding and just public opinion that they didn't want the roads shut down. But then again, what do I know? I think...
Well, and it has to be done right.
Oh, yeah, it has to...
You
takes a
look at
lot
Long
of
Beach. Long Beach does it right.
Yeah.
That's been around for decades. It's arguably the second most prestigious IndyCar race, after the Indy 500, of course. If it's done well, it can work.
Yeah. So it's going to take a lot of planning. But anyway, moving on to 2 news and a fake news. This is a part of the show where I bring in 2 or 3 really random stories. 2 of them are true. 1 of them is fake. You have to guess which one, Ben. Right now, Liam is in the lead all time with a correct answer ratio of 1. Here we go. Number 1. American tourist dodges a ticket from inspector in Venice by jumping into the water. He dived into the water illegally when a ticket inspector approached him in water he approached him.
False.
No, it gets better. For a water bus, since she was fined hundreds of euros for swimming illegally by jumping off the water bus into the water. Then, FBI says it has recovered stolen ruby slippers, missing for 13 years. The sequin shoes were pilfered from Judy Garland Museum in 2005. Investigators has pursued the range of leads, including an abandoned Minnesota mine. Ever since, they have been looking for these slippers, and they finally found them. And right now, the biggest running theory was that a bunch of kids took them. However, they have been found, and the FBI has placed a press conference for it was yesterday. And they were not clicked together 3 times before finding their way back home. If you guys didn't watch Wizard of Oz, you have no idea what that was. Anyway, final story. Brie Larson, the actress who is playing Captain Marvel in Marveled, has lost 3 movies due to the fact that Marvel is not sure that Captain Marvel will be able to succeed as well as the other Marvel franchises. All right. The clock starts ticking. What do you think?
I think I heard about that last one. So is that a true story? I feel like I
All right,
was hearing something
explain
about...
your thought process for the rest of them. All right.
Well, you just started laughing in the middle of the first one, so I figured that was a dead giveaway, that you were just making up something totally crazy and ridiculous.
You sure about that? All right. What do you think
that was
about
my guess.
What do you think about the FBI ruby slippers? What do you think about the slippers, Benjamin?
I don't know.
They were not clicked 3 times. They are not home. He doesn't know.
No, I know. Wizard of Oz, of course.
No, I think he knows the reference, but I don't think he knows if it's true or not.
No, I have no idea.
All right.
I heard about the last one. I haven't heard anything about...
All right. Which one do you know for a fact is true?
The Captain Marvel story.
That is the wrong answer. Captain Marvel has... It is trending now. Brie Larson has a 7-picture deal with Marvel Studios.
Okay, I could have sworn that there was something about somebody from Marvel was losing movies. I feel like...
What? I think it might have been Ant-Man, but... our tech Savannah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Nope, that's probably where it came from. And so, right now, Larson is being paid $5 million for her solo movie, which is much higher in terms of starting wage. I'm getting this from ScreenRant.com. But Marvel has signed the Oscar-winning actress to a 7-film contract, and that's a pretty lengthy deal. And we could go into spoilers because I actually have a friend, or I have a source, I wouldn't really call him a friend, who works for Marvel, and he actually got his hands on a script that was not shredded. And he sent me a couple pictures, and all I can say is everyone's going to completely mind freaked. Like, it is going to be insane. However, Marvel updates these scripts a lot, so whether or not it actually holds true, I don't know. But however, Larson, 7-year deal for Marvel, $5 million for her starting movie or for her solo movie. I'm excited for the Captain Marvel series. I mean, it's breaking ground. I mean, obviously Wonder Woman did great, but Wonder Woman was one of the heavy hitters for DC, so I'm not surprised. The second movie, I think, will be the be-all, tell-all, whether or not it actually, continues a trend, or if it was just, the women's, feminist movement where it's like, it's a woman in a superhero movie, everyone has to see it. Whether or not the quality of the film was good, I don't know. I still haven't seen it yet because it's not on Netflix. But anyway. So, it's a nice try because, but the American tour
I was on Bing. I could have sworn I saw something about somebody from Marvel lost their contract or something. I don't know. Whatever.
So, this is actually this one is on National Public Radio. America's Tours dodges his ticket by jumping into the water. She was fined hundreds of euros for swimming illegally because she jumped off a water bus. I think the big question is, why'd you jump off the water bus? I mean, obviously she's 18. She climbed on the water bus in the Vietnam Canal, which sounds amazing, except she had no ticket. So when the ticket inspected and approached her, she did the natural thing and dived into the water. The Wyoming Fair jumper was then fined 450 euros for swimming without permission, a stiff penalty, but she paid it with a credit card. Who's to say the experience wasn't worth it? That is Steve Inskeep, the host, with the article. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think it'd be pretty fun to jump into the Venice Canal. However, 450 euros. That's like what? How much money? I mean, I don't know the euro to American dollar ratio, but I know that's definitely a lot more than I have in my bank account right now. So no way, Jose. I'm not doing it. And then back to the ruby slippers.
It's about $517.
Yeah, no, I'm good. But with the ruby slippers, that one was actually true. And FBI actually doing something for a change. I mean, granted, the constant change in leadership doesn't really let them solve anything big. But you know what? Ruby slippers have been found. Amen. So, going back in, if you guys still use Yahoo, I doubt you do. Yahoo is dying. So, the LA Chargers, that just sounds wrong. But the Chargers have they've had it pretty rough in terms of the move to Los Angeles. I mean, the LA Rams, they've had pretty successful year. So, they're probably going to do pretty well.
It does always help when the team's winning.
Yeah, but Seth Wickersham reports that the owners have discussed the Chargers' availability in Los Angeles, that this is just a second season in LA, and it's already going bad. The team hasn't been able to sell personal seat licenses. If there is one surprising part of the report is that the team has already charged its revenue goals when it moves to Inglewood from $400 million to about $150 million, pretty close to $250 cut. That's huge because if they're not making money, it's bad. They should never have made the jump in the first place. The Rams, I understand why they went, but LA just is not a football city. I mean, I'm not sure why they made the jump in the first place. It just doesn't make sense to me, but
That makes two of us.
Great. We're talking on a news channel. None of us knows what's going on. Well, this is great.
Well, here's something for you. There are reports that the Jacksonville Jaguars are in talks about possibly moving to London.
No.
That's London, England.
I think that's
You
a
think-
foolish idea because right now the Jaguars are doing decent. I mean, they made it to the AFC Championship last year. They smoked the Pats this season, and I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, I'm sorry, they had the Patriots number from the first snap. But now they're starting to struggle as Leonard Fournette got hurt. But I think a move to London would not work solely for the fact that you have any idea how much that's going to cost people to, travel. You would have to have, like a 6-6 series where it's like 6 games at home, 6 games away. But even then, is it fair to the away players to have to travel, across several time zones to you just make it, to a football game?
We actually just have some news that broke today about that possibility. So Saad Khan, who owns both the Jaguars and Fulham FC, apparently dropped his divisive Wembley Stadium bid.
At Wembley Stadium. Ooh.
That was the possibility, but for now, the Associated Press reporting that it is, quote, staying in the hands of English soccer.
All right. Well, I mean, they could do what the Revolution do in terms of just, all right, we'll just take out the posts and just let them play. But I understand why they haven't done it. But the NFL just needs to stay where they are right now. They just need to stay still. Because right now, Cleveland has, they finally are getting, they've had the most loyal fans ever, in my opinion.
God bless each and every one of
God
them
bless-
after
God
1
bless
and
the
31
Browns
over
fans.
2 seasons.
It's one of those things where it's just, you gotta, you have, I mean, if New England were to, get out and just go to, London, per se, do you have any idea the backlash that would occur? Think about it.
Well, first of all, they'd be the London Patriots. I think they'd have to
They'd have to change
their
the
name.
I mean, it's just, it doesn't work.
Whether you love or you hate the Patriots, they are part of NFL lore at this point.
They're
The run
they're
that they've
historic.
had over the last 2 decades.
They're iconic. They're the dynasty of our generation. And, I mean, that dynasty's coming to a close, which is going to leave the throne open for someone else to come in. I mean, right now, I think in the NHL, the dynasty probably is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously with the Sidney Crosby era of hockey, it's coming to a close. I mean, right now they got Evgeny Malkin, and they're trying to pick up Phil Kessel, and then they're trying to pick up more people consistently, but I don't think it'll work. Eventually their dynasty is gonna fall. But then you got the hopes of the Buffalo Sabres, who has arguably some of the biggest rookies in the country right now, or biggest rookies in the world, with Rasmus Dahlin, Jack Eichel, and they picked up a bunch of Jack Eichel's college buddies. So now that they're playing together, it's going to be dangerous. But right now, with the way the NFL is right now, everything's really set. I think the only team that makes sense to move would be the LA Chargers going somewhere else, because right now, the move to LA killed them. It killed them. They had no reason to do so in the beginning. And when they did it, everyone's like, wait, what? I mean, granted, LA is a sports city. However, it's not a football city. I mean, right now, when the Kings won the Stanley Cup, everyone lost their mind, and everyone bled the black and silver of the LA Kings. When the Dodgers made it to the World Series, they got up and hyped about it. And then, you got, oh my gosh, and the Lakers, when they went on their run with Kobe Bryant, everyone bled purple and gold. But they're just not getting behind the it's the same thing with the LA Clippers.
I was going to say,
no one's
the
getting
Clippers,
no one's
when they
getting
had
behind
their
the
big
Clippers.
three.
Yeah, no one's getting behind the Clippers. Because, I mean, they had Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, 2 of the best players in the world right now, and they did nothing. And honestly,
And the Lakers still stunk.
yeah, the Lakers
still
still could get.
The Lakers stunk, and it was still a Laker town.
Yeah, I mean, I think really right now the only real city that can support 2 sports teams is probably New York City, because they got the Brooklyn Nets, they got the New York Knicks, they got the Jets, they got the Giants, they got the Mets and the Yankees, and they got the Rangers and the Islanders. All teams which are doing fairly decent, except for economically, except for maybe the Brooklyn Nets and the Islanders. But even then,
They even have 2 MLS teams now with the Red Bulls and New York City FC.
yeah, I mean, it's a sports city, but they can support it. And I mean, right now a shift in terms of leaving the league, because I mean, right now Oakland's potentially going to, Las Vegas. I think that'd be a real foolish move on Oakland's part because, they finally got to the point where they were half decent, but moving to Vegas wouldn't do anything. What was it, the Las Vegas Raiders? Oh, yeah, no, if anything, it'd be the Las Vegas Fridge Raiders. Literally, that's what Las Vegas is known for, is the casinos, and, it's not going to be known for football. I mean, the Golden Knights, that was their first sports team, but I feel like, the more you kind of dive into it, it's not going to work. Anyway, so as you know, speaking of Las Vegas Knights, Golden Knights, they are doing relatively well, and I mean, they made it to the Stanley Cup their first year in the league, which was very impressive, might I add. I mean, it's easily the best inaugural season of any sports team of all time. And I mean, the fans, I don't think they're just going to be those, commuter, oh yeah, I'm only going to be a fan when they win. I don't think that's Las Vegas because, I mean, they're the first real sports team in the, area. However, the NHL announced that they have approved the K Arena deal. That means the NHL is going to be going back to Seattle for the first time since 1917 when the Seattle Hockey Club won the Stanley Cup in 1917. This is huge.
Just real quick, I want to bring up something. So the Browns have been terrible.
Yes.
In recent years. So you mentioned the Knights going to the finals in their first season. Here's a little bit of history for you. The Cleveland Browns' first year as a franchise wasn't 1950, but their first year in the National Football League was 1950.
Yeah.
And they actually won the NFL championship that year.
Yeah.
So they're the only team that's, and of course the NFL was a much different league back then. But
yeah. So
I find it a little ironic that it's Browns too, just because.
Anyway,
what we think of them today. But
back to this.
Go ahead.
So the Seattle Metropolitans are the only Stanley Cup winning team to not still be in the league. However, they could potentially be reviving the Metropolitans name. However, since they won the Stanley Cup in 1917, do you really want them to raise the banner for the 1917 Stanley Cup? Because, I mean, by the looks of it, they had probably around 8 or 9 people on their team. I mean, they won the only Stanley Cup in the city before folding within a decade, while a new NHL team expanded. While the NHL team could now expand to Seattle, should they adopt the name of the Metropolitans?
Why not?
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe you have a different perspective on me since you're a hockey guy, but
right now,
the
only argument I have...
Are there any better alternatives?
I mean, there's the Metropolitan League or division right now, so I think that might be the only issue.
Well, okay, that's true. I didn't think of that, but I don't know.
I mean, right now the biggest team Seattle's got is the Seahawks, and I mean, their fans, they are loud. I mean, granted, right now football-wise, they're not doing too hot, but still the fans are pretty legit. I mean, obviously a lot of them are like, oh, bandwagoners. Nah, I don't think so. But still, people get there and they get loud. I mean, the Seattle Supersonics, they were pretty popular for a while. They just never won an NBA title.
And the Mariners are terrible too.
Oh, so. Yeah, Seattle Mariners. That's the other. No one even knows who they are. I mean, they were decent for a while, but
they had Ichiro. That was about it.
Yeah. However, so right now it's pretty much a guarantee that the NHL is going to Seattle. And right now they are trying to, decide whether or not, it would be a good idea to actually bring back the Metropolitan name. I mean, a couple ideas right now are the Seattle Wizards. That's been going around. And there's a couple other teams going around. Right now, 13 possible names for the teams are the Seattle Cougars, Seattle Eagles, Seattle Emeralds, the Evergreens, Firebirds, the Kraken. It's not a bad one. The Rainers, the Renegades. I think the Renegades wouldn't be a bad idea. But, I mean, right now, by the looks of it, the arena is going to be fairly nice. And, I mean, the other, names are going to be the Sockeyes and the Seals, Totems, and the Whales. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen with that. And, I mean, right now, people are releasing concept art of the Seattle Kraken and the Walleye, the Sockeye, all these other teams. Do you think that Seattle's going to be able to support this team?
Based on how they support the Seahawks, I think the answer is fairly obvious. But based on how the other teams have performed, maybe it becomes more complicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in good news for the NHL team, a top Amazon exec just placed a bet on their franchise, and most likely he's going to be investing in the company or on the team. And probably, my guess is he's going to be a very, very big donor, and and it's Andy Jassy. He joined the NHL franchise ownership group trying to bring a professional hockey team to Seattle. And, I think that would be big because if Amazon is able to support this team, it's going to be huge because, you think about it, Amazon could easily oh, hey, you want our jerseys? Just you got to get a Seattle jersey first, But I think the team in Seattle, I think it's not going to have any problem with fans. I think it's just going to be building a franchise because, we've already had an expansion draft, and Vegas, obviously still building and recovering after that. They lost James Neal, who was a big, big player involved, and as he went to Calgary. But I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I'm really excited to see how it does work out. And, hey, good luck to Seattle because, honestly, 32 teams in the NHL, it's going to make a fun time, especially as they're going to be put in that Pacific Division, which is already really tight. It's going to be entertaining. So that is it for Much Ado About Nothing. It has been an honor to be on air with you all. Ben, thanks for coming in on such short notice.
Yeah, no problem.
So this is Ben Schneider, Chase Strauss, signing off. Peace.